All right, so we are streaming, trying to figure out how to do a live stream with Mark, who's a voice from the sky. Mark.
Hey, how are you, everybody?
So for good OPSEC reasons, Mark's face will not be shown, but he is at Mark was taken. That's Mark with a C. Mark was taken on Twitter. So he and I are going to try to set up the manual install of the SeedSigner code. So we're going to start with, and by the way, when it comes to live streaming, we have no idea what we're doing. So this is going to be a disaster.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Our first one.
And Mark's audio is terrible because I'm playing him through my laptop speakers and then picking it up on my microphone. Whatever. We're dealing with this. So you start by going to seedsigner.com, and there you can link to the project on GitHub. So we're going to go follow that link. So on GitHub, we can scroll to the bottom of the first page here, and the last section is manual installation instructions, and that links out to a different part of the documentation. And so here we are. The first step is to grab a copy of the Raspberry Pi operating system, but you don't want the most recent version. You want a specific release of it, which is archived for download. And so that specific release is linked here. It's the May 28th, 2021 release of Raspberry OS Lite. So if we click into there, we're going to download the zip file, which contains the actual image, the SHA-256 hash of that zip file, and then the PGP signature that proves that this was a proper release from the Raspberry Pi Foundation. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to skip the verification hash and the signature verification steps, but we will come back in a later live stream and talk through how to do those steps. So I've downloaded the zip. To save time, I've already burned it, but I can show you the steps. So it's a zip file, but we don't have to actually unzip it. So I'm using the Raspberry Pi Imager. Balena Etcher is another typical tool to write the SD card. I'm selecting, so in the list, it's built to help you install the Raspberry Pi OS, but since we downloaded a specific version of it, we're going to go to Use Custom and then select the image off of our computer. And again, you don't have to unpack the zip. I just selected the zip that I downloaded straight. Choose your storage device. That'll be your SD card. And then one note that sometimes gets in the way, I think both Raspberry Pi Imager and Balena have these options where you can alter the image that you're writing, things like enable SSH, setting a different username and password. Make sure everything writing the card. So save that, and then you write the card. And 5 minutes later, it's done. So, and then when it's done, it ejects it out of your system. So now I've reinserted the card, and on a Mac, it shows up in, oh, I have not reinserted it. All right, let me do that now. Okay, pop it back in, give the Mac a couple moments. There we go. It shows up as boot.
Yay.
So I'm going to, and so if we look at the instructions, let's go back. I can close this now. We've downloaded it. Like I said, we're going to skip the verification steps, and we're going to. Oh, in this case, so because we need to install code that we have to download from the SeedSigner GitHub repo, that means that we need some sort of internet access in order to write this card. But we're going to be doing all the work on a Raspberry Pi device. So if you're using the Raspberry Pi 1.3, there is no onboard Wi-Fi. And so you don't have an internet connection to be able to pull the source code onto your Raspberry Pi and write it to your SD card. So you have two options that are listed here. The first is just use a different Raspberry Pi, one that has Wi-Fi on board, connect to your network, give it internet access, do all these steps, and then when you're done, take that SD card out and then put it in your Pi Zero 1.3 that you're building for your SeedSigner. Or, this is a little more complicated, you can give the Pi Zero 1.3 internet access by relaying it through your computer's USB connection. So that's what I typically do for my Mac. And so I'm going to hop into those instructions. So the instructions are primarily written for Mac and Linux, and Marc was suffering through trying to get it to work on Windows, was not successful, but once he gets that worked out, he'll be updating these instructions to work better for Windows. But we can at least talk through the steps. So I'm going to CD, which is change directory, into that SD card. And again, right now, the SD card is just plugged into my MacBook. And I'm going to make some quick modifications to it to support what I need to do. So,
Keith, have you got a Pi 1.3 currently plugged in, or a 2 with Wi-Fi?
So right now I have nothing plugged in. I'm just running. I've just plugged the SD card into my MacBook. So I
directly in. Okay.
Right. So I burned it with the Raspberry Pi imager, and then I reinserted the card, and so now the card is showing up in my OS as its own volume.
Yeah. But not, kind of not plugged into the specific SeedSigner hardware.
Correct. Let me.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Let me do my fancy webcam here. There we go. Can you see my webcam?
Mm-hmm.
So as I crawl over, my desk is a mess. There's the SD card I just burned. It's just sitting in my computer. Okay.
100%.
All right. Kill the webcam before I show something sensitive on my desk here. Okay. So now that I've changed directory into the SD card, this boot, I'm going to create an empty file called SSH. This is just standard Raspberry Pi OS kind of stuff. So just by creating a blank SSH file in this directory, that's going to signal to the Raspberry Pi OS to enable SSH support. So SSH enables us to remotely access the Pi. Now we're going to edit this config.txt. And so basically we just have to make some tweaks in order to enable internet sharing over USB. So I go to the very bottom of the file, and I'm just going to paste in this line, DT overlay. At one point, I knew what all of these steps meant, but I have to confess that I've forgotten. So right now, obviously you can Google it, but just kind of take it on faith that that's what these steps are doing.
As it says, it's fairly incomprehensible, but necessary, and it works. Definitely seems easier on Mac.
Okay.
Me doing that, but quite possible on Windows eventually.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I threw a bone. I'm like, yeah, this is how you could do it on Windows, but I never actually tried it. So it wasn't that useful.
No, it was kind of, here's a clue.
Right.
Go do this the Windows way. And yeah.
Okay, so
I've got that working, but certainly the USB tethering, internet connection sharing part for me on Windows, that eventually became insurmountable, and I just plugged in a Raspberry Pi the Pi Zero 2 with Wi-Fi, and then connected that directly to my Wi-Fi.
So I almost had to do the same today, and my backup plan was, this is a Pi Zero W, so this has Wi-Fi on board. So I was just going to configure this one to connect to my Wi-Fi and do the work there, but I finally got this working. And I'll show you exactly why I was failing for an hour before we set this up. So I'm in the step where I'm editing this cmd line.txt file, and I need to add this modules load dwc2 g ether directly after the root wait command. So this is one long string of commands. Scroll to the end, scroll to the end. And almost there. There's root wait, and there's more after it. So I want to paste this in after root wait. So we've got root wait here. I just pasted this in, and now I can save this file. Great. Here's the problem. Right when I pasted that in, and again, this screwed me up for an hour. For some reason, Nano here has added a line break to make it more convenient somehow. But by adding that one line break, it means the Raspberry Pi will not boot. And so I was just like plugging it in, powering it up, getting nothing, getting frustrated just because of that one new line that was added by this editor when I pasted in the line that I need. So make sure that this stays one long line of text that adds, this one extra section that we need to paste in. So now I can Control X to save. Yes, write my changes. Enter. Okay, so now I've done the 3 steps we need. I've written my blank SSH file. I've updated config.txt, and I've correctly updated command line.txt without adding any line breaks.
Yep.
All right, so now I can, I'm going to eject this boot drive out of my Mac. I have to get out of here in order to, I have to release it basically from the command line. All right, so now I've ejected it. So, and here we can bring back my webcam. There we go. So let's see, where is my Pi? All right, here it is. So here's my Pi. I need to pop in this SD card that I just configured. There we go. It's been plugged in this whole time with no SD card. I don't know what that means for the device, so I'm just gonna unplug it from my computer and replug it. And so, yeah, this device is supposed to be air-gapped, but because I'm using my USB connection to my computer for internet access, that is where I'm plugged in into my MacBook right now.
Yep.
Okay.
So you're sharing your internet connection across the USB cable, and that's how we're going to be able to SSH into the Pi.
Right. Well, yeah. And so if you're like me earlier today and you're running into tons of problems, you're not going to see anything on this display screen. So that will only show you something when the SeedSigner code is running. But right now, all we've done is install the Raspberry Pi OS. So if everything's gone well, my Pi Zero is running its Linux operating system right now, but I can't see anything. So if you're running into trouble, there is this port on the right side. This is the, was it mini or micro HDMI?
Well, I discovered there was a difference between mini and micro. I thought there were only 2. Turns out there are 3.
Oh.
So that one is actually called mini HDMI.
Okay.
And he is different to micro HDMI. He do not fit. So, yeah. Anyway, I have now one useless conversion cable.
Got it.
But that is mini HDMI, and then you can plug, if you get a converter, you can then turn that into a full size and plug it into your monitor. And then see what's actually happening in the boot process.
Yeah, so this little adapter plugged into that mini HDMI port and then sent out to a monitor was the only way that I could figure out what was going wrong. Because otherwise, you're just flying blind. Because, like I said, there's nothing that's going to show up on this screen until we have the SeedSigner code running. So you're not going to see like the shell output or anything. But so what we can do, and again, this is biased towards the Mac, is if we look back at the instructions. So let's see. Let me scroll down a bit. You do have to configure the Mac or your Linux box or eventually your Windows machine to share that internet connection. So you can go through the steps here for Mac OS. Somebody has added steps, I believe, for Linux. There we go. Some more specific guides for Linux. Additional work that needs to be done. And then Windows will be fleshed out by Marc once he can win that battle.
Yep. It was a good helpful link, but didn't completely solve it for me.
Okay. But anyway, on Mac at least, when I pull up my network settings, I can see this RNDIS Ethernet gadget entry has a yellow light. That means it has detected something. It's connected. So that's a good sign. So with the Pi connected through this RNDIS Ethernet gadget link, I should now be able to say SSH Pi at Raspberry Pi.local. This is typical SSH stuff. Each time you see a new device that you're SSHing into, it says, hey, I don't recognize this. Are you sure you want to continue? I say yes. And then the password by default in all of these Raspberry Pi OSs is just lowercase. I can't remember if it's Raspberry or I think it's Raspberry Pi. Let's see. Nope, maybe it's just Raspberry. There we go. All right, so now I'm inside the Raspberry Pi OS in my SSH
A
prompt.
huge achievement.
Yes. Yes.
Not to be understated.
So now that I'm in here, let me back up here. See if there were any important further steps to do. Okay, so I'm in. Yay. I can change the password. Oh, and then we just configure the computer to share internet access. Okay, so we've done all these steps. Good. So we can go back. So now we're ready. So now I'm back at the main installation instructions. We took this side step here so that I can share the internet connection. And so, like, for example, now that I'm on the Pi, I can be like, hey, ping google.com, and it knows how to resolve the domain name. Oops. Let's cancel this. It knows how to resolve the domain name to an IP address, and it's actually getting ping responses back. So my Raspberry Pi Zero is talking to the outside world by going through my MacBook's USB connection and out over its Wi-Fi. Okay. Or you could have done step one where you just do it on a different Raspberry Pi that does have its own built-in internet connection. So either way, regardless...
So the Zero W, that's the one that has Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It looks the same, except, let's see. No, I'd have to look at them side by side, but just, quickly looking at it.
It's definitely got the Wi-Fi chip on it. We know about that. Yep.
Yeah. And then, if you really look at in the back, it says Zero W as the product name. And the W means Wi-Fi, wireless. Okay, so now we're ready to configure our Pi. So verify that you're using the correct version of the operating system by typing this command. It's a typical Linux command to show you what you're working on. We're on Raspbian version 10, which is codename Buster. And
I've run that command, and I have the same. I've successfully SSH'd into the correct device, and I have the correct Raspberry version.
Excellent. All right, so now we're going to open the interactive menu. So sudo means do something as the super user. So you're giving yourself max permissions to be able to change like the most important things in your operating system. So this is going to pull up a DOS style UI. And in here, we're going to make sure that the camera and the SPI interfaces are active. So interface options, and just hit enter. Camera interface enabled. Yes. And my phone is ringing. Potential spam. Okay. Camera interface is enabled. And then interface options again, SPI, and make sure SPI is enabled. I'm pretty sure both are enabled by default, but just to be sure.
Yep.
I don't know if the localization options matter. Actually, maybe well, I don't know. So let's do it anyway. It's in the instructions. Let's just follow the instructions. So we're gonna set the locale, and it's gonna take a bit to load all the different languages and locales that it supports. And what we're looking for is N_US, so US English, UTF-8. And so as we scroll, because Raspberry Pi Foundation is a British company, they default to British English. So we are going to unselect their British English. We overthrew them as our rulers, so goodbye. So there's English there's Great British English. So I'm going to hit spacebar to unselect it. And
Got it.
we're going to favor our American English US UTF-8 UTF-8 and hit spacebar to select that. And then how do I hit OK? Can I just hit return? Yeah, I just hit return. Then I'm not sure about this option. Default locale may as well be what we just selected. US English UTF-8.
So on mine, it still came up with the GB thing as well. And I think subsequently I then went back and deselected it, but I ended up with two.
Okay.
US English and I forget what the other one was.
All right, and while this figures that out, I'm going to step aside here and I'm going to tweet out that we are live streaming this and see if anybody is crazy enough to want to jump in and watch what we're doing. This is not high entertainment, but you know,
it's great. It's great entertainment for SeedSigner. Yes, just people who are passionate about the SeedSigner project. And Keith, again, I've got to publicly now, since we're live streaming, I'm going to publicly say thank you very much for spending the time on trying to get some configuration of how to get a dev environment set up so that some other people besides just yourself and Nick can be making some bug fixes and just maybe make some small changes, make some pull requests that are nothing of the heavy lifting that you're doing. But I've got that one that I've wanted to fix for a while, which is the dots and the circles in the QR code.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, when you do
that was
the zoomed in transcribe UI.
Yeah, that's when I realized, oh, there's that small little bug. Maybe I could make a contribution into that. And then I realized, oh, setting up a dev environment, not that straightforward.
Right. Okay, so we have set our system locale. All right. When you exit the system configuration tool, you'll be prompted to reboot. All right, so I'm going to go to finish. I have to hit right arrow to get to the select and finish options. Select finish, reboot now, yes. Okay, and so now I've been kicked out of my SSH session. because my board is rebooting. So after a couple moments, I can try to SSH back in. The Pi Zero is not the fastest board, so it takes 30, 40 seconds for it to boot up. In the meantime, we can preview what's coming up next. We're going to change the default password by typing passwd. All right, I think I should be back up now. Nope, I was too optimistic. In the meantime, let's see, has anyone liked my tweet that we are live streaming? I can't tell.
You must have so many screens open.
The Mac.
How many monitors are you at?
I have 2 monitors, but I have like I don't know, about 10 Mac workspaces. So if you do like a 3-finger swipe, it's like a whole different desktop environment. All right, and then we have less than 10 minutes left in our Zoom call, and so when our Zoom ends, I'll just restart it, but I'll keep the live stream running.
Sounds great.
Okay, let me SSH in. There we go. So we're still the default password, all lowercase, raspberry. All right. So now we're going to change the password by running the passwd command. Current password is raspberry. New password is we're going to follow the SeedSigner convention, which is capital A, air, capital G, gapped, but with an @ sign for the A, and exclamation point. So capital A, IR, capital G, @ symbol, PPED, exclamation point is going to be our new password. Confirm.
Oh, do we have to choose that password?
You don't have to. For your local system, you don't have to.
Okay.
And you don't have to change the password at all if you don't want to.
No, I mean, we definitely should. And I did that. I just used my own. I didn't use the air gap.
Yeah. It's just so that your end result from following this manual installation guide should be identical to the SeedSigner downloadable image. Not in the reproducible build sense, but that if you follow all these steps to the letter, any further guides, technical guides, will be a perfect match for what is running on your local system.
Got it. Okay, got it.
Okay, we got to install dependencies. I forgot about this step. It takes 15 to 20 minutes to complete. So, we're probably going to end this live stream early.
All right.
I'm going to get that started, and then we can kind of talk about what is going on. I don't know if it's going to work with these characters in here.
Okay, so mine, I just did a straight copy and paste now. And although yesterday I don't know if it was too late or the machine didn't have enough coffee. Wow, I did not enjoy those multiple commands.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes
Okay,
after.
that's good.
So yeah, there's 2 major steps happening here. So first, we're just updating our apt install tool. So apt needs to know what all is available out there to install. So that's update. And then $& just means, hey, also run apt install these different libraries that we need to use. And -y just means don't ask the user to confirm yes or no prompts. It'll be like, are you sure you want to install Wiring Pi? Yes. Are you sure you want to install Python 3 pip? Yes. So that just skips all of that.
All those confirmations.
Right. So then this is going. So I don't know exactly all of these, but Wiring Pi is related to, I think, like GPIO pins that we need in order to talk to control the different, like the LCD hat that we put on to control or get input from the joystick and those sorts of things. All of the code runs as Python 3, and then pip is just the installation manager for Python. NumPy is a Python number math library to do like faster, more optimal math calculations and math related data structures. Python pill is the image library, the Python image library, and it is primarily C code, so written in C. So this is going to install the binary already compiled Python image library C code. Lib openjp2, that sounds like it just adds JPEG support to the Python image library. Git is what we use for source control, so that when we're done, we can say, hey, get the
Get the actual project.
Right, get the SeedSigner source code. How are we doing over here? Still going. Python 3 OpenCV. So CV stands for computer vision. So this is an open source library for doing computer vision. So we use this for related to our QR code capture from the camera. Pi camera talks to the Raspberry Pi hardware camera. Lib Atlas base dev. That one, I would have to look back through the dependencies to see what that one's doing. And then QR encode is just a utility to generate QR codes so that we can display them back on the screen. So,
Keith, does apt-get sort out itself in terms of which ones need to get installed in what sequence, and their kind of interdependencies, or does it actually have to?
Yeah, like if you look at what it's doing, like it's pulling in this SVG library. SVG is another image format. So, we didn't tell it to grab the SVG library, but as part of the Python image library, I'm sure it has SVG dependencies. So apt is just pulling those in automatically, because the definition for each of these entries will say, hey, by the way, I'm dependent on these other libraries. And so it manages all those dependencies.
Great. And this is the whole download processing, all of that is going to run obviously much faster on a 0 v2 than the 1.3, right?
Yeah.
I remember you did some tests when you first got a W2 like a year and a half ago.
No, that must have been Nick, because I still don't have a W2 to play with.
Really? Wow.
They're out of stock.
Okay, I know, but it's kind of figured you of all people might have one.
Part of it was the W2 is so much faster that there's certain timing issues in the SeedSigner code in the UI that make it a little awkward to use the W2 or 2W, whichever it is. And so part of it was just me not wanting to have to write more code, basically. Like, if I, because and at some point somebody did do some timing tests, and they tweaked the settings to make it behave better on the version 2. But yeah, it was like, they're hard to get, and it's gonna create more problems that I have to solve, and I'll let somebody else find those problems, and we'll eventually solve them.
Well, maybe you already solved the one with the QR code where you right-clicking, I think it was right joystick or left joystick.
Oh, yeah.
And you fixed that one without even having a W2.
Yeah, true. Okay, so if this note is correct, this is going to take 15 to 20 minutes, so we can pause here. And actually our Zoom session is about to kick out in 1 minute and 17 seconds. So any last thoughts?
When did they ever change that? That like two people on a Zoom session
I mean,
unlimited to 40 minutes.
to be fair,
That
how about this?
certainly
Wait,
wasn't the public service announcement.
I did think of one thing in the last minute. If this amazing live stream has been useful for you, let me get rid of my picture. There we go. This is a LNURL QR code that goes to my wallet of Satoshi, which I know is custodial, but I don't run a Lightning node because I've got too many other things to worry about. You can send me some sats, and if you tweet whatever, let me know you did it, and I'll figure out how to kick some over to Marc too. You know, we're not expecting massive riches coming through here, but you know, feel like we.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't have like the value for value sat streaming set up, but here you go. Send us a couple sats if you like.
There we go.
All right, so now we really are about to get kicked out. So
all right,
we
great.
will.
We'll rejoin in once the.
Yeah. Oh, and there it goes. Marc has now been kicked out by Zoom. So yeah, we will pick up once once this installation step is done. It's still doing work. All right. See you on the next one.